Hello, I'm Michael Embry, and welcome to our fourth and final show previewing the Kentucky Book Fair. Now, the book fair will be held November 15th at the Frankfort Convention Center from 9:30 until 4:30 p.m. It's a free event. We'll have nearly 200 authors attending this year. They'll be signing books, discussing their books, and participating in symposiums and readings and all sorts of things. It's a family affair. There will be children's authors there, all kinds of authors. So it's a great day for the family. Now, the Kentucky Book Fair unofficially begins on November the 14th with the Children's Day, and that's at the Frankfort Convention Center. It starts at 9 o'clock in the morning and runs until 2 p.m. We'll have, right now there's more than 700 students confirmed or registered to attend, and we're going to have a record number of schools there. And again, it's similar to the Kentucky Book Fair on Saturday, except it's more for students. Now, the Kentucky Book Fair, in its 32 years, has raised nearly $370,000, with the proceeds going to benefit public and school libraries, as well as literacy programs across the state. So you know, when you go there and you buy a book, you're benefiting Kentuckians all across the Commonwealth. So keep that in mind. On Friday, before the book fair, we'll have a librarian's luncheon, and information about that is at our website at kybookfair.blogspot.com. Among the authors there, we'll have Mark Kurlansky. He's a food writer and a music writer, and on the day before the book fair, he's going to be at the Grand Theater, and he'll be introducing Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. Now, he's written a book about her called, well, not about her, it's called Dancing in the Streets, and she's one of the featured people in it, and it kind of focuses on music of the 1960s. And then on the next day, he'll be there with his daughter, Talia, and he's written a book called International Nights, both of them, and it's a cookbook of recipes from more than 250 countries that they've visited around the world. So that's he'll be there for that as well, and he'll be part of a symposium talking about that. Now, getting back to the librarian's luncheon, Melissa Landers, a best-selling young adult author, will be there, and her book is Alienated. And again, a person to contact is Judith Gibbons with the Kentucky Book Fair. Now, today we have two of our authors, Krista Sturgeon and Gwyn Hyman Rubio, and I want to welcome both of you to the program today.
Thank you.
Krista, I understand you've written a book, and it's your first book, and what's the title of it?
The name of it is An Angry, Distorted, and Exhaustive View of My Body Image. And the reason the title is as long as it is because there are certain red letters in the title that spell out anorexia.
Okay.
So that's one reason for such a long title, is it actually spells out anorexia in the title.
You know, I was looking at your book today before the program, and I noticed the red letters, and I wasn't sharp enough to pick up on that. So, thanks for letting us know about that. Now, of course, you say it's a book about anorexia, and it's your personal? It's
my personal journey through anorexia. I suffered for 20 plus years. It all started, I went to college at NYU in New York City, studied film and television. I could not get a job after graduating, and my self-esteem just took the pits, went into the pits. And friends of mine who had moved out to San Francisco said, "We'll give you a place to live free of charge so you can find a job. We just got to get you out of New York before something really bad happens to you." So I moved out to San Francisco, ended up getting in a moped wreck, going through physical therapy. But before that happened, I had to come back to New York to get the rest of my stuff that I left behind. And a very good friend of mine said, while you've been out in San Francisco, it looks like you put on a couple pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that really hit home. And those few words, they say sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Well, words almost killed me. It gave me anorexia. I started from that point on doing things to lose weight, going on no fat diets, and eventually getting a fitness trainer's job so I could hide my anorexia from people, just saying, oh, it's my job to exercise 3 hours a day and to walk for 2 hours a day, until I was finally put on disability from my job because I had lost so much weight. And eventually finding a therapist and a psychiatrist, and eventually came down to the point where they told me I was going to die. And they said, you need to get your stuff together to go home to be with your family, to die. Well, showed them I'm still alive today. But I also hit another point while I was here at home where I got down to my lowest weight, which was about 76 pounds. I'm 5'8". Figure that out.
So your normal weight would probably be about, what, 125
125. And I just had a revelation one night and said, God, I can't go on like this anymore. And that was the turnaround point. Just one night on May 7th, 2007. I remember it vividly. And from that day forward, I made it a point to start gaining some weight. Slowly it took me, but it also wrecked my body. It did tremendous damage to my body that I still pay for today.
Now, I understand that it's, is it still kind of an ongoing battle for you?
It is. And if anybody tells you that they've recovered from an eating disorder, they're kidding you. Once you've had an eating disorder, you're always going to have an eating disorder. You might be able to put it in the back of your mind, but it's always going to be there.
Now, the I guess it's kind of almost a hidden disease almost.
It is. In the 80s, it was a big disease. In the 80s, you heard all about it.
Well, Karen Carpenter.
Yes, Karen Carpenter. Her story came out then. There were several after-school specials on it in the early 80s, but you don't hear much about it anymore. And Kentucky does not have an eating disorder program anywhere in the state.
What kind of numbers do we have in Kentucky then?
We have 102,000 women and 46,000 men, according to the Courier-Journal's statistics, that have an eating disorder right now.
Well, that's a sizable number, isn't it?
Yes, it is, considering we don't have any sort of program for them. My nutritionist, Tina Thompson, who's in Lexington, who's excellent, usually refers people to Remuda Ranch in Arizona, but those places cost like $60,000 to $70,000 a month.
A month?
A month.
Wow.
To go, and they usually don't take insurance.
And I guess that's what maybe led to your book then, to try to give some guidance and.
That's exactly what led me to write the book. Is my goal was, by writing the book, was to get my story out to save somebody who might be going through the same thing, save them 20 years, and maybe help them out now before they have to suffer 20 years. Maybe cut it down to like a year so I can be their fancy treatment center.
Right. Now, I understand that in your book, isn't there a quiz or something that will
At the end of the book, there's a little quiz you can take, and if you answer so many with a yes answer, I do have at the end of the book some websites you can go to, as well as also Tina Thompson's name, number, and address. She's here locally. If somebody local picks up the book, where you can go and get help. Because I'm not a doctor, so I'm not claiming to cure anybody.
Right. Have you, do you do speaking engagements, or have you done some of those?
I do. I just spoke at Owen County Middle School yesterday. I've spoken at all the schools here, middle schools in Franklin County, except for, I didn't do Elkhorn for some reason. I've done both Western Hills and Franklin County. And I'm going to do Leestown Middle School in Fayette County.
Now, I understand you had some help with this book.
Yes, I did. Mike Folker is my co-author. He helped embellish some of what I wrote, and he did all the graphics. He's done all the stuff with the printing people. He does all the technical stuff, I guess you would say. But he's also done a lot of embellishing on what I have written. Yes, he is my right-hand man. I would have him right here with me today if I could.
Did he provide some other kind of guidance? I mean, kind of bounce things. I mean, did you kind of bounce things off of him too about?
I did. I bounced a lot of stuff off him, and I educated him quite a lot too, because he had no idea about eating disorders. He works in a factory, and he was in the Army. He didn't know anything about eating disorders, but now I've got him running around saying, "Fat is not a feeling." I've got him running around saying little quotes out of the book, and I love it.
Have you attended the Kentucky Book Fair before?
I have not.
Okay, not even as a
patron.
Are you excited about?
I'm very excited.
Well, I know you seem to have a lot of followers here in Franklin County.
I do.
And like I said, you're a Frankfort girl.
I am.
And you went to Franklin County High School.
I did. I did indeed. I was like, that's one thing that sort of made things difficult when I went to New York City. I was a big fish here in town, going in a small pond, but I went to NYU and I became a little fish really quickly.
Yeah. So it's, well, listen, I hope you can get your message out to a lot of men and women out there. And,
I hope so too. If I can just reach one person, it'll all be worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, thank you for sharing your story, and I'm looking forward to seeing the book.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is Gwyn Hyman Rubio, and welcome, Gwyn.
Thank you
And
for having me.
you've got another novel out.
Yes.
And it's called?
It's called Love and Ordinary Creatures. And it's, well, it's a love story. It's about a triangle.
Okay.
And two people in love and one bird. So this is how
one,
it's working.
What bird?
A bird.
Okay.
Sulphur-crested cockatoo.
Okay.
And so it's an allegory. But I got the idea for this story about over 16 years ago. My husband had a conference in Melbourne, Australia. And I decided to go with him because I wanted to see Australia. And so when the conference was over, we were traveling to see the Great Barrier Reef, and we were at Arley Beach in a delicatessen. And we were sitting there waiting for the pontoon that was going to take us to the Great Barrier Reef, and we were eating. And about that time, a woman pedaled up on a bike. And as, like most Aussie women, she was tall and blonde and tanned, and her hair was tasseled, and she was absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. And we were sitting, we could see through these huge picture windows, and I was looking just at her, just in awe. I was just thinking, oh, this is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And so she pedals up to the delicatessen. She comes to a standstill with the bike. She gets off, and it's then I notice the sulfur-crested cockatoos perched on her handlebars. She comes around to the front of the bike. She leans over. She puckers her lips. He extends his neck, lifts up his feet, and they kiss. I had never seen anything like that in my life. So then she leaves him. She comes into the delicatessen. I'm keeping my eyes on the cockatoo. His eyes are on her the whole time she's in the delicatessen coming to pick up a takeout order. So I noticed then that he's not tethered to the bike. He could fly off if he wanted to. He could leave. She picks up her order, goes back out. He greets her with a delighted squawk and a shriek. She gets on her bike, they pedal away. I turned to my husband and I said, now that's one bird in love. So that image has stayed with me all of these years. So I finally decided I would write that story from the cockatoo's point of view.
From the cockatoo's point, okay. So in the meantime,
Yes.
you wrote another book called, as most of us know, Icy Sparks,
right.
which a lady named Oprah Winfrey kind of,
Right.
presented it as a book of the month, was it?
It was on her book club.
Book club,
Yeah,
book club, that's right.
An Oprah Choice, right.
And you follow that up with the
With the Woodsman's Daughter, which is, yes, an old-fashioned historical epic based on my great-grandmother's life.
So this Icy Sparks was about a young lady with Tourette's syndrome.
Right.
And then, like you said, the
Growing up
next
in
one was
1950s,
historical fiction. So this seems like somewhat of a departure from those then.
Yes, I think I make it difficult on myself in some ways for my readership, on me, and difficult for me and my readership, in that all three of my books are so totally different. But one reason I do that is I become bored quite easily, and I don't want to repeat myself. After I wrote Icy Sparks, many people asked me if I would be writing a sequel to it. And I thought, no, because I had let Icy go. And I was ready to move on to something else. So I said, I don't think I'm going to be writing a sequel anytime soon or ever. So then I wrote The Woodsman's Daughter. So this is totally different from both of the other two books. So I always like to challenge myself and do something that I think is a little different than the book that came before. So the problem with this is that, of course, I did not know from what point of view I would write this novel. At one point, I thought I would maybe use multiple points of view. But then, after all the research I did, and I read countless books on birds, and then narrowed it down then to parrots and then to cockatoos. Watched 10 hours of David Attenborough's series, 10-part series, The Life of Birds. Took meticulous notes on that. And still hadn't decided exactly what point of view I would write this story from. But then when I started to put pen to paper, Caruso, that's the bird, his voice came quite clearly to me and easily for me, and the words began to flow. So I decided to stick with his point of view.
Some people don't seem to realize that on fiction, especially with, even your historical fiction, that there is research that goes into writing. It's just not like stream of consciousness type thing where you just letting the words flow. You have to know what you're writing about.
Right, and while we were in Australia, I had fallen in love with the bird population of Australia. They're raucous, they're noisy, they're birds with an attitude. The birds of Australia are just wonderful, and I love them, and their idea is, this is our continent, and if you don't like it, you can just leave. And in fact, while we were over there, we were traveling. We were in these kind of bed and breakfast and places with other tourists. And I remember we were sitting down one day with Canadians, and the Canadian woman turned to us. We were at our table eating breakfast, and she was eating. She says, "I just don't like the birds here. They're just not polite," and they weren't. So, but I knew that I had to do a lot of research. I had to know about cockatoos and you know, if you have one as a companion, how do you teach them self-discipline? And how do you teach them how to entertain themselves? And what do they eat? And I had to learn all of this. So,
What do you think this book will appeal to bird lovers then?
will it do what? I couldn't hear you.
To bird lovers.
Well, I hope bird lovers will want to buy this book. But the
Yeah.
book is really, Silas House calls it in the blurb he gave me, it's a meditation on true love. And I think that's really what it's about. While I was researching my cockatoo to understand the way he might think, I was also simultaneously reading books on spirituality.
Okay.
So I started reading and rereading books by Thomas Merton.
Okay. Yep.
Then I read Marilyn Robinson's Gilead. I had it on my shelf, but I had not read it yet. And she led me in her book, which is a beautiful book, to The Diary of a Country Priest, as considered a classic in spiritual literature, by Bernanos. So I was playing with both of these things at once. I mean, this thing about animals, but also about love. And it's a meditation on love. And what is selfless love? What is true love? And those are the issues I'm exploring. And should wild animals be caged?
Yeah.
Can parrots really be domesticated? And anyway, and what happens when a bird is taken out of his natural environment? Parrots are incredibly bright. They live